Have you ever wondered why some children slowly drift away from their parents after marriage? Not because they stopped loving them, but because every visit leaves them feeling a little smaller than before. It never happens in a single day. Distance rarely begins with silence. It begins with comparison, a simple sentence, a casual remark, a harmless opinion. You should learn from your brother. Look at your cousin's wife. They're doing much better than you. Most parents believe these words are meant to motivate. They think comparison inspires growth. But the human heart doesn't hear comparison as advice. It hears it as rejection. And rejection leaves scars that no apology can easily erase. Imagine an elderly father waiting for his son to visit during the holidays. Days before the family gathering, he imagines laughter filling the house once again. He prepares his favorite meal, cleans every room, and silently counts the hours until the doorbell rings. Finally, the family arrives. Everyone smiles. Everything appears normal. Then, in the middle of dinner, the father casually says, "Your cousin already bought a second house. You too should learn something from them." The room becomes quiet. His son forces a smile. His daughter-in-law lowers her eyes. No argument follows. No one raises their voice. But something invisible changes. The conversation never truly recovers. When they leave that evening, the father wonders why they seemed distant. He believes they are becoming ungrateful, yet he never realizes that one sentence outweighed every meal he prepared with love. This is the strange nature of the human mind. People can forget advice. They can forget gifts. But they rarely forget how someone made them feel about themselves. When a child builds a family, they are no longer trying to prove themselves to the world. They are trying to protect the life they chose. Every criticism aimed at their spouse feels like criticism aimed at their own judgment. Every comparison feels like a quiet message saying, "You still aren't enough." Over time, something unexpected happens. The child doesn't stop loving the parent. Instead, they begin protecting themselves. Phone calls become shorter. Visits become less frequent. Conversations stay on the surface. Not because affection disappeared, but because peace became more valuable than approval. Many parents believe respect is earned by correcting mistakes. Yet mature relationships grow through acceptance before correction. No tree grows stronger because another tree stands beside it. Every tree grows according to its own roots, its own season, and its own storms. Human beings are no different. Comparison steals attention from growth. It teaches people to measure their worth instead of discovering it. And once a home becomes a place of measurement instead of belonging, people visit out of obligation, not desire. There is another truth that many parents never notice. The person being compared isn't the only one who suffers. The parent slowly loses something too. Every comparison creates another invisible wall. Eventually, the child stops sharing dreams. They stop discussing problems. They stop asking for advice, not because they no longer need guidance, but because they expect another comparison waiting on the other side of the conversation. Think carefully. How many children hide their struggles simply because they fear hearing, "I told you so," or "Someone else handled it better"? Real wisdom doesn't ask, "Who is better?" It asks, "What does this person need from me today?" Sometimes they don't need another lesson. Sometimes they need one sentence that becomes a safe place to stand. "I'm proud of the life you're building. I know you're doing your best. I trust your decisions." Those words don't make people weak. They give them strength to carry responsibilities they already feel are heavy. Every marriage is a new world. No outsider can fully understand the battles hidden behind closed doors. The greatest gift a parent can offer is not perfect advice. It is unwavering belief, because belief gives people courage. Comparison only gives them fear. As years pass, children rarely remember how many times their parents corrected them, but they always remember whether home felt like a courtroom or a refuge. One place makes people defend themselves. The other invites them to return. So before your next conversation with your married child, pause for a moment. Ask yourself one question. Are my words helping them feel accepted, or simply reminding them that someone else seems better? That single question may save a relationship before silence ever has the chance to replace love, because families are not held together by perfection. They are held together by the rare feeling that even with all our flaws, we are completely accepted. And once a person feels truly accepted, they never have to search for another place to belong. There is a quiet mistake that destroys more families than anger ever could. It doesn't arrive through shouting. It doesn't begin with arguments. It comes disguised as love. A parent says, "I'm only trying to help. I've lived longer. I know what's best for you." And perhaps they truly believe those words. But love becomes dangerous the moment it refuses to recognize that another person has grown beyond its protection. One afternoon, a mother received a phone call from her married daughter. Her voice was trembling. She and her husband had argued over money. Without hesitation, the mother rushed to her daughter's house. She confronted the son-in-law, reminded him of every sacrifice her daughter had made, and made it clear whose side she was on. The daughter cried. The son-in-law remained silent. The mother drove home believing she had protected her child. For a few days, her daughter thanked her, but weeks later something changed. The daughter stopped calling as often. Family dinners became uncomfortable. Conversations became shorter. The husband never forgot that another person had stepped into a conflict that belonged only to the two people inside the marriage. The mother thought she had saved the relationship. In reality, she had unknowingly weakened it. Many parents never realize this truth. Every marriage is built through countless private moments. Some are joyful, others are painful, misunderstandings, failures, disagreements, forgiveness. These experiences are not obstacles to marriage. They are the very things that shape it. When someone constantly steps in to remove every difficulty, they also remove every opportunity to grow stronger together. The human mind develops confidence through experience, not rescue. A person who never carries emotional weight never discovers how much they are capable of carrying. That is why control often feels comforting in the beginning, but suffocating over time. Think about a young tree tied too tightly to a wooden stake. At first, the support seems necessary, but if the ropes are never removed, the tree never learns to stand against the wind. Its strength remains borrowed. Marriage works the same way. Parents naturally want to shield their children from disappointment. Every tear hurts, every failure feels personal, every struggle awakens memories of the years they spent protecting them. Yet there comes a moment when protection quietly transforms into interference, and interference slowly replaces trust. Many children begin hiding problems from their parents, not because they no longer love them, but because they already know what will happen. Advice will become instruction, concern will become control, questions will become judgments. Eventually, silence feels easier. Ironically, the parent who wants to stay involved ends up becoming the last person to know what is happening. Real wisdom understands something that fear cannot. People mature through responsibility, not through dependence. A child who solves a difficult conflict with their spouse gains something priceless: confidence, patience, emotional resilience. These qualities cannot be inherited. They must be lived. That is why every solved problem becomes another brick in the foundation of a lasting marriage. But every problem solved by someone else removes one of those bricks. There is a quiet strength in choosing not to interfere immediately. It does not mean becoming indifferent. It means believing that the people you raised are capable of finding their own way. Sometimes the greatest support is not giving answers. It is listening without taking control. Instead of saying, "Here's what you need to do," try saying, "I know this is difficult. I believe the two of you will find the best solution together." Those words accomplish something extraordinary. They communicate confidence instead of dependency, support instead of supervision, respect instead of authority. Children may not always follow advice, but they never forget someone who believed in their ability to stand on their own. Parents often fear letting go because they confuse distance with abandonment. They are not the same. Distant creates space. Abandonment removes love. Space allows trust to grow. Love remains present without becoming possessive. This is one of life's quiet paradoxes. The tighter we hold another person's future, the more desperately they try to escape our hands. But when we loosen our grip with confidence, people often return willingly, not because they are obligated, but because they feel safe. The strongest families are rarely those where parents solve every problem. They are the ones where everyone knows help is available, yet everyone's independence is equally respected. So the next time your married child shares a problem with you, resist the urge to become the hero of their story. Listen, understand, encourage, then allow them the dignity of finding their own path. Because the purpose of raising a child was never to make them dependent on your wisdom forever. It was to prepare them to trust their own. There is a kind of love that looks generous on the surface, but quietly steals strength from the very people it hopes to protect. It doesn't shout. It doesn't demand recognition. It simply keeps giving money for a new house, help with another loan, support for unexpected bills, school fees for the grandchildren, a new car, another emergency, and every time the parent opens their wallet, they whisper the same comforting thought, "I'm only making their life easier." At first, everyone feels grateful. The burden becomes lighter, the crisis disappears, the family breathes again. But something invisible also begins to disappear. Responsibility. There was once an elderly father who had spent nearly 40 years building his savings. He lived modestly. He rarely bought new clothes. He postponed vacations. He worked through exhaustion because he believed one day those sacrifices would become security. Not only for himself, but for his children. When his son got married, he helped with the wedding. Later came the down payment for a house. A few years later, another loan, then business difficulties, then unexpected expenses. Every time his son struggled, the father reached into the savings account he had built over an entire lifetime. He never complained. In fact, he felt proud. He believed this was what good parents did. Years passed. His savings slowly disappeared. His retirement became smaller. His own dreams quietly faded into the background. One evening, sitting alone at the kitchen table, he opened his bank statement. For the first time, he realized something painful. He had spent decades preparing his children for the future, but almost nothing preparing himself. The silence in that room felt heavier than any financial burden he had ever carried. Love often convinces us that sacrifice has no limit, but human nature teaches something different. People value most what they struggle to build themselves. Think of a mountain climber. No one remembers the helicopter ride to the summit. They remember every difficult step they climbed with their own strength, because achievement creates identity. Struggle creates confidence. Ownership creates gratitude. When every obstacle disappears through someone else's sacrifice, something inside the human spirit remains unfinished, the ability to endure. Financial independence is not simply about money. It is about believing I can survive difficult seasons. Without that belief, even small challenges begin to feel overwhelming. Parents often mistake financial rescue for emotional support, yet they are rarely the same thing. Support says, "I believe you can overcome this." Rescue quietly says, "I don't believe you can." The words are never spoken aloud, but people feel them. Over time, repeated rescue changes expectations. Instead of asking, "How can I solve this?" the mind begins asking, "Who will solve this for me?" This habit grows slowly, almost invisibly, until responsibility quietly becomes dependence. Ironically, the parent also begins carrying a burden that becomes heavier each year. They worry constantly. They postpone retirement. They sacrifice personal health. They delay their own happiness because another financial emergency always seems to appear. Love slowly transforms into obligation. And obligation eventually becomes exhaustion. The greatest tragedy is that neither side truly feels free. The child feels incapable. The parent feels indispensable. Both become trapped inside roles they never intended to create. Real generosity is not measured by how much money leaves your hands. It is measured by how much confidence remains in another person's heart. Sometimes the greatest gift is not another payment. It is another opportunity, an opportunity to struggle, to solve, to adapt, to discover hidden strength. This does not mean refusing compassion. Life sometimes presents genuine emergencies, unexpected illness, natural disasters, moments when helping becomes an act of humanity rather than habit, but constant rescue is different. It quietly teaches that responsibility belongs somewhere else. Imagine an eagle protecting its young forever inside the nest. At first, it feels safe, comfortable, secure. But a nest that is never left eventually becomes a prison. The wings remain healthy, yet they never learn to fly. Children become adults not because time passes, but because responsibility becomes their teacher. Every difficult decision, every financial mistake, every lesson earned through experience becomes another layer of wisdom no inheritance can replace. Parents who understand this truth give something far greater than wealth. They give confidence. They teach their children that storms are survivable, that failure is temporary, that dignity comes from standing back up after falling. And perhaps the greatest act of love is believing that the people you raised are capable of carrying the weight of their own lives. So before offering money the next time your child faces a challenge, pause for a moment, ask yourself one question. Am I removing today's discomfort? Or am I removing tomorrow's strength? Because money can solve a temporary problem, but confidence can transform an entire lifetime. The richest inheritance a parent can leave behind is not a larger bank account. It is a son or daughter who looks at hardship without fear and quietly says, "I'll find a way." There is a strange truth about love that few people ever speak about. The closer we feel to someone, the easier it becomes to forget that they also need space. Many parents believe that because they once carried their child in their arms, they will always have the right to step into every corner of their life. But marriage changes something invisible. It doesn't erase the bond between parent and child. It simply creates a new home, a new center, a place where two people are learning how to become a family of their own. And every family needs something that cannot be bought. Privacy not because they have something to hide, but because love grows best where it feels safe. There was an elderly mother who lived only 15 minutes away from her married son. She loved him deeply. Every few days she would prepare his favorite meals, buy fresh fruit, and stop by to surprise him. Sometimes she knocked. Sometimes she used the spare key he had given her years ago. To her, these visits were acts of love. She imagined her son smiling every time she arrived. She believed she was making his life easier. For a while, everything seemed normal. Her daughter-in-law thanked her politely. Her son never complained. But little by little, the atmosphere changed. The smiles became shorter, weekend visits became less frequent, conversations felt unusually careful. One evening, after another unexpected visit, her son quietly said, "Mom, could you please call before coming next time?" The words were gentle, but to the mother, they felt like a knife. She drove home with tears in her eyes. After everything she had done, after all the years she had sacrificed, how could her own child ask permission before she entered his home? What she didn't understand was this. Her son wasn't asking for less love. He was asking for more space. And those are not the same thing. Every home carries an invisible boundary. It cannot be seen. It cannot be touched. Yet every human being instinctively protects it. Home is the one place where people remove the masks they wear outside. It is where they laugh without embarrassment, disagree without fear, read without being observed, be completely themselves. When that space is entered unexpectedly, even with the best intentions, something inside the mind becomes alert. Not because danger has arrived, but because control has quietly disappeared. Real closeness does not require constant access. It requires mutual respect. Think of two trees growing side by side. If they are planted too closely, their roots compete for water. Their branches block each other's sunlight. Instead of growing stronger together, both become weaker. But when there is enough distance, each tree grows fully. Its roots deepen. Its branches spread naturally. And together they create a stronger forest. Relationships follow the same quiet law. Distance is not the enemy of love. Disrespecting boundaries is. Many parents fear that giving their children more space means becoming less important. The opposite is often true. People naturally return to places where they feel trusted. No one enjoys feeling watched. No one enjoys feeling that every decision is being quietly monitored. When married children feel their independence is respected, something beautiful begins to happen. They stop visiting out of obligation. They start visiting because they genuinely want to. They make the phone call first. They share stories without being asked. They invite their parents into moments that were once kept private. Not because they were pressured, but because trust invited them. Love that demands constant closeness often creates distance. Love that respects healthy boundaries creates longing. And longing keeps relationships alive. The strongest families are not the ones who spend every day together. They are the ones who know that affection does not disappear simply because there is space between visits. Respect creates peace. Peace creates trust. And trust always outlives control. The next time you feel the urge to stop by unexpectedly or to ask questions about every detail of your child's married life, pause for just a moment. Ask yourself, am I entering because they need me or because I need to feel needed? That single question can reveal the difference between love and attachment. Because real love never forces its way through a closed door. It waits, it knocks, and it enters only after it has been welcomed. Children rarely remember how many times their parents visited, but they always remember how those visits made them feel. Did they bring peace, or pressure, comfort, or obligation? The answer to that question shapes relationships for years to come. Sometimes, the greatest way to say, I love you, is to trust someone enough to let them build a life that doesn't require your constant presence. And when they know that your love comes without conditions, they will never see your absence as distance. They will see it as respect. There comes a season in every parent's life that no one prepares them for. The house becomes quieter. The dinner table has fewer chairs occupied. The phone rings less often. The routines that once gave every day its purpose slowly disappear. For years, your identity was simple. You were someone's mother, someone's father. Every decision revolved around your children. Every sacrifice had meaning because it was made for them. Then one day, they built a life of their own. And without realizing it, many parents begin searching for another reason to feel needed. Some begin solving problems that no one asks them to solve. Others insist on caring for grandchildren every day, even when their bodies are exhausted. Some abandon their own dreams because they believe a good parent should always put themselves last. At first, this feels like love, but over time, it becomes something else, a quiet fear of becoming unnecessary. There was an elderly woman who spent almost every day caring for her grandchildren. She woke up before sunrise, prepared breakfast, walked them to school, picked them up in the afternoon. Cooked dinner before finally returning home long after sunset. Everyone praised her dedication. They called her selfless, strong, a wonderful grandmother. Yet every night after closing her front door, she sat alone in complete silence. Her knees ached, her back hurt, her hands trembled from exhaustion. But the deepest pain wasn't physical. It was the fear that if she stopped helping, no one would need her anymore. One afternoon, her doctor looked at her medical report and quietly asked, "When was the last time you spent an entire day doing something only for yourself?" She couldn't answer, not because she didn't remember, but because she had forgotten such a day had ever existed. That question followed her home. For weeks, she couldn't stop thinking about it. Had she been taking care of everyone else because she no longer knew how to take care of herself? Many people believe love means giving until nothing remains. But nature teaches a different lesson. A tree cannot continue offering fruit if its own roots are drying beneath the ground. A river cannot nourish a valley if its source has disappeared. And a human heart cannot endlessly pour into others while remaining empty itself. This is why so many parents unknowingly carry sadness after their children leave home. Not because love has disappeared, but because purpose has. When your entire identity has been built around raising someone else, freedom can feel frightening. Silence can feel unbearable. You begin filling every empty hour with other people's lives because facing your own feels unfamiliar. Yet perhaps this stage of life was never meant to be an ending. Perhaps it was always meant to be a return to the person who existed long before responsibility consumed every dream, the person who loved learning, who wanted to travel, who enjoyed music, who laughed without worrying about tomorrow. That person still exists. They've simply been waiting patiently beneath years of sacrifice. Imagine meeting your married child several months from now. Instead of talking only about their problems, you tell them about the book you just finished, the class you joined, the places you visited, the friends you've made, the new hobby that fills your mornings with excitement. Notice what changes. The conversation becomes lighter, more equal. Your child no longer feels responsible for your happiness. Instead, they feel inspired by it. Children carry enough invisible burdens of their own. Nothing comforts them more than knowing their parents are living with purpose rather than loneliness. Because when parents create meaningful lives for themselves, love becomes a choice instead of a responsibility. Visits become celebrations instead of obligations. Phone calls become moments of joy rather than silent guilt. There is a beautiful paradox hidden inside every healthy family. The less desperately we cling to one another, the stronger our relationships become. Love was never meant to imprison. It was always meant to set people free. Free to grow, free to change, free to become who they were created to be. And that freedom belongs to parents as much as it belongs to children. So if you are entering this quieter chapter of life, do not ask, "Who needs me now?" Instead ask, "Who am I becoming now?" Because that question has the power to transform everything. Your greatest years may not be behind you. They may simply look different from the years you expected. Your children do not need parents who sacrifice themselves forever. They need parents who smile sincerely, who protect their health, who pursue forgotten dreams, who wake up each morning with curiosity instead of regret. That is the inheritance no amount of money can buy. A living example that happiness does not end when children leave home. It simply changes its direction. One day, your children will look at your life and quietly think, "I hope I grow older the way my parents did." There is no greater legacy than that. So release the weight you were never meant to carry forever. Bless your children. Trust the lives they have built. Walk beside them, not in front of them and not behind them. Then turn gently toward your own path. You have spent years writing the story of someone else's beginning. Now, with the same courage, write the most meaningful chapter of your own, because the happiest parents are not the ones whose children never leave. They are the ones who discover that love does not end with letting go. Sometimes that is where it truly begins.